Welcome to Model Horse Tack School. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to go through some pictures of bridles. So we're doing another harness primer. This one's going to be more illustrative, I think. So here is a picture of a bridle for harness. More terminology, the winker stay. That's the one that keeps the winkers or the blinkers in place. Get your crown piece, rosette, point of throat lash. They call it a throat lash. Cheek piece, nose bend, buckle for bits. Notice how this nose bend is not held on by another strap. There is one strap for both the bit and the nose band. Okay. You have your face strap. That's the decorative one. Here's another shape. Let's see, brow band. And there's a winker stay buckle up here at the top so you can adjust it. Here's another picture. This is the standard snaffle bridle. In this case here, there's loops right here where the nose band is. Nose is open in the back. And then there's buckles that hold on the bit. So you still have the nose band, but it doesn't go all the way around. And then your buckles hold on the bit. Also notice this is really kind of cool. All of this is one piece. Interesting. Now the face drop was added because you can see a stitch right there. But your winker stay or blinker stay is the same piece as the bridle. It's just kind of interesting. Here's your buckle, your strap to hold your over check rein. This tells me this is not for a light harness. This is for a heavy harness. Light harness has the over check that way. This here is for a draft harness. Here's another example, except now we have chain for the check rein. Here is attached the strap with a D-ring and then a buckle that has a hoop and that holds the check rein. So here's a good illustration of breeching. Now we would make it now with a jump ring right here, but these straps would then attach to the saddle. Trace carry here is just a buckle strap, just a buckle strap coming off of a jump ring or an O-ring. And it's split. So your hip strap is just split leather with more of the chafes here. So there's 4. Notice how, look at the contour on that trace or on the breeching. So you kind of have a longer strap and then you have a shorter strap, and this is actually raised. These are just ideas when you're making yours. Here is the breast strap. This has 2 straps holding it up on the neck. And again, you have, this is multiple layers, so you have probably more layers than we would do, but you have your lining, and then you have a really shiny piece in the front that's sewed together. And then you have a strap with loops like this. See how that works? So your traces would buckle here on each side. So this buckle is inside this lining piece, right? And then you have all your keepers. So your trace wouldn't go any further than here. Notice how your jump rings are underneath the buckle strap here, and your martingale D. Here's a picture of a saddle, synthetic material brown. Remember, that's your pedestal hook. That's for your crooper. And then this is the ring for your rein. Your buckle that holds your girth on. So this is your girth down here. That would be for your martingale. So this is a light. This saddle is for a light harness. I could tell just by looking. And then here is where you would hook on your loop straps for your shaft. And there should be a place for the other, looks like I've got double buckles, so take that back. So you got one, there's two buckles here. So one of these is for your shaft loops, and then one of them is to hold the saddle in place. Here's some hames, old hames. This one still has a piece of the trace on it. This tells me you can use this with more than one horse, so you can do a side by side, because that's for attaching the horses side by side together. Kind of interesting to note the shape. It goes straight up and then curves out. So curve and then straight and then curve. And then there would be a strap up here, usually inside these loops to hold it up, that would squeeze this around the horse's neck to keep it in place. And there's a strap missing down here as well. And then this is your rein ring. There's a prettier version of it. Notice how this collar, they put rope in here, probably because it was too big for the horse. So they did that just so it would fit the horse's neck better. But again, I would call this like a plow harness and plow hames. There's a nice old fluffy collar. Buckle up here that holds it together. And then the hames would go in here between this big lip here and the padding. Now let's see, more pictures of hames. Wood with metal on the outside. Giving you ideas, right? So this here would be for your traces. And then this here would be for hooking up to another horse. You would hook the horses up here so that they're together. There's another one, old and rusted. Just so this one here has more curve, but it's still pretty straight right here. That's a line, that's straight. And if you don't believe me, just draw a line. Get a ruler out and put it on there. Here's a prettier collar. It's not quite as big. And it's got all of the terminology. Rim, forewhale, afterwhale, throat, cap, neck, body side. Okay, hame should be so fitted that hame tug comes on center of draft. All right, so this kind of shows you the fit. It's not a great picture, but it's the only fitting picture I could find. So a collar is going to look a little bit smaller than you think it is, than it should be. Here's some show hames. I believe these are real, that are out there. Kind of cool, huh? Again, you can see what you can do for tops. Sometimes they're just a cap, sometimes they're a bead and a cap. I'm sure we can find findings like this to put on the top of the wire. I like how they're tapered. I wish I could sculpt something like that and then cast it. These, however, are ones that we can buy for model horses. I've seen out there. Might be the world of model horse collecting on eBay. But these are available out there. They don't have So we already know these are going to be single horse because there's no loop here. There's no extra for hooking 2 horses up. So you can see that now, right? So no hooking up. And also nothing for a check rein. So these are all for fine harness. These are real rondo brasses and hames. I think they're hames. The ones that I got were for stone horses drafts. They're very big horses. And these are perfect for those. I don't know if they've made any smaller. But you can see all the brasses they have. They're really cool. So here is your trace chaff, okay? So it could be, here's the trace attached to a buckle. I think this is a really cool close-up. You have, so you got your 2 pin heads you would do. This is a hook that goes onto the hames. So that's the hames. And then your strap, you're going to be right, you're not going to put you will never put a hole right here when you're putting in holes, okay? It's going to fit all the way through here. Your first buckle hole is going to be the smallest you would do. Because if you had a hole here, that means you're not even going to get the strap into the loops. Okay. And here it is hooked up with all of the, buckle safe is the leather underneath the buckle. Loops. Trace anchor, that's on your hames. Hames clip, that's what clips onto the hames. Collar, hame. Hame nails. Why they're called hame nails, I don't know. They probably are what secure your hook really well. Short tug. This is a picture of an old saddle, harness saddle, okay? Padding underneath, space for the spine so you don't push on the spine. That's what your decorations look like. Woohoo! You have your crupper bar here. You got your pedestal hoops, and you got your hook for your check ring. And then you got all of these bolts and things to keep everything together. Sometimes I think it's good to see what a real one looks like, so you can try to imagine yours as real as possible. Okay, so out there on the internet are things like this. And it's going to give you the names of the parts. And it's going to point them out so that you can hopefully guide the way you make your harnesses. That's something you might find useful. This one's a little muddy. This is kind of nice. Obviously an Arabian here. Breaking everything down like we did, right? Crupper, breeching, back here. Breast collar and tugs, that's here. Blinkers. Over check, that's your over check bridle. Shaft holders, they go here. Shaft guides, they go here. And the holdbacks. So sometimes, this is for sale. This breaks it down really well. Shows where it goes. Something to help you. There's a draft one. By now you should be able to look at all of these and understand what they are. This is good for, was easy to read, for your fine harness or your light harness. Very patient horse. So apparently over here, this is a dashboard. This is a dashboard iron. Never seen that anyplace else. Notice here the trace attaches to a hook on the cart and not a swivel pole. All right, here's a picture of like a cut of this, what the saddle looks like. And this would be it could be your draft or your fine harness, but this looks like a fine harness. And it just shows what it looks like on the inside. So I just thought that was cool. Especially this for your check ring. I just found that interesting. Like these compress and hold your rings on. All right, here's your pacer or standardbred harness racing. You might want to get a screenshot of this. I found it out there on the internet. Point things out about this because you now know enough that you can make this. The details are up to you, but you can make this. This check rein, okay, splits goes to the bit. We've seen that. So over check rein, okay, over check rein. They call it a Murphy blind, but that's your blinker. Looks like they tie down the tongue. They have the saddle. They're this is a running martingale, and this is a martingale, and then the straps go to the saddle. So that's kind of different. So for the front, it's kind of like a martingale. No breeching. Your hobbles are they're straps. Usually they have like a rubber coating on them. If it's a pacer, it goes from front to back on the same side. If they're a trotter, it's front to back on opposite sides. It looks like they're held up with two. There's one, there's two on every single loop. And then in the front, there's a strap that holds them together in the front. So this is the type of harness you want to make. It's not going to be that much. You got your bridle with your overcheck rein. It's going to be a saddle. Your shaft holders are going to be up here instead of down here because of the cart that you have. You're still going to have, your reins are still going to go through loops. You're still going to have the hook for the overcheck rein. You're still going to have a crooper, no breeching. You're still going to have a breast collar type of setup, but this one here is more specialized. And you would then look for harness racing breast collar, okay? And you have a running martingale. See, that's your running martingale right there. So you would then research specifically this. Very easy, very few, just very, very little leather in this. And then for the pad and the head number, every number has its own color. And you'll want to look that up, harness racing colors. I think they just use the bit, the snaffle that has the bar, so it doesn't end up going through the horse's mouth. I think the boots would be the hardest part of a harness racing saddle. Look at these. That's a quarter boot. I've made those for your 5 gaiters. Tendon boots and then knee boots. That's a new one. So they wear 3 different boots. And the back here, it's just bandages. I don't have a sulky, so that'd be a bummer I can't make this. Just a close-up of a heavy harness. I think it's kind of cool to see when it's a triple like this. It's called a spider. See if you can name all the parts. Now this is your collar, this is your hames, and this is your peak. All right. So this goes on top of the collar, and then the hames goes on. So that's a separate piece. Let's see. This here is kind of cool. That's just a backdrop, and then here would be like this or this, but that would be used to hold the trace in place. I think this is supposed to be the trace. The reins for sure. And this is your martingale, your false martingale, the one that holds the collar down. These are your shaft loops. Are you beginning to see, here's your overcheck ring. That goes on the hook on the saddle. The hook is behind here. So that's the thing. Can you recognize all the pieces and where they go? It makes your life a whole bunch easier if you can get through this. This is your trace chaff. You should recognize that now. Your girth, and then this strap here connects to your shaft loops. The light horse shaft harness kit complete. Look at what the hames look like. So this is a light horse that has a collar. There's a picture of a heavy harness. Here's your martingale. Remember those straps that go under the belly and attach to the girth? They're attaching here to the martingale, the false martingale. False martingale has the pretty brasses. This just holds the trace. Trace goes through here, so your shaft loops are right in here. You're following? It should be getting easier as you look at pictures. Here's another setup. This is light harness. Not going to be any different really, except now we get to see what it looks like on a horse. Notice here, instead of a split for the leather, they put a loop, and then they have loops in the breeching, and then added these straps. These are ideas. How do you want to do it? Again, this is just more, I go through sales, somebody's selling a harness. I get to see the pieces. I get to see all the individual pieces. So this is really cool to just, if you want to see what it looks like. New style lead breeching. Okay. All right, so here's a rein configuration for when you have a side-by-side, because they don't have a whipple tree. This here is hooks on the cart, so there's no equalizer here when these animals pull. But you got your shaft, and then that loop that's on that hames is how you connect them to the shaft. And then your reins. So you notice how this rein attaches to this rein. And this rein attaches to this rein. And that's another reason why these loops in the saddle are so important. In this case, I think they show 2 loops. And that is to make sure the rein is going in the right direction. Here's your whipple tree for 3 across. Thought you would enjoy this one. And in this case, the load is balanced to the 3rd animal. That's tricky. So you have, this is almost an equalizer. So this would equalize between this horse and these 2. And this equalizes between this horse and this one. So it's a more sophisticated whipple tree. But I thought you would find that interesting, how they do it. So here's 3 across. We just saw the whipple tree. So how do you do the reins? This rein, of course, goes to this rein. This rein goes to this rein is attached. So it looks like they just go ahead and attach the outside rein to the collar. So there would be that extra ring for that on the collar. And then you have the rein for the center horse attaching then to the rein for the outer rein of the outer horses. If that makes sense. Okay. So inner rein of the outer horses goes to the collar. Rein of the center horse goes to the outer horse on both sides. And then the outer rein of the outer horses connect then to the rein of the center horse. So if you don't like my words, you could do a screenshot of this. Here's tandem. And looks like the rein, got two reins in his hand. See how he's holding it? So that means this rein goes through the rein ring. He's not using that. Oh, that's Evercheck. Hard to see in this picture. Through the ring. Ring goes through the ring. Well, this is why you would have the check rein. Remember the over check rein, especially on this horse, because if he goes to scratch his knee, he's in danger of getting entangled in all of this stuff, the extra reins and all the harness underneath. So there's your tandem. He's holding two reins in each hand, so there's nothing. They're just running the reins back. All right, here's your 6-horse hitch. In this case, they're using 2 shafts. So this shaft here attaches to the shaft that attaches to the cart. So you got the shaft, and then they add a whipple tree and a shaft. That way they have a shaft to attach another whipple tree for the third leader, or for the third team. And it shows how the reins work too. So it's very much like when there's only 2 horses. So this rein goes here, attaches to that rein. So you got 1 rein for that team going back. And that way you only have 3 sets of reins, or 3 reins in each hand for 6 horses. So you could trace that. It's just pretty. We'll start looking at some real horse examples. Apparently that's important. It's another time that's there. Goes through the saddle, and then it looks like it goes up to the crupper, but it does not become the crupper. Not talked about, so that's an extra strap. I need to research. I don't know if it's required or if it's just one of those straps that may exist and you may or may not need it. Snaffle bit. Notice how the nose band only goes around the nose, doesn't go all the way around. It's because there's only one strap here. There's a couple of horses in the field. That's a nice fancy bridle for a couple of horses in the field. In this case here, they added a bar to the shaft, and the horse is attached directly to the bar instead of attached to the shaft. I think this would be more comfortable because they wouldn't be tugged slight over. So this is a more comfortable setup, I would think, for the horse, but I do harness, I don't know. Okay, yeah, that's just pretty. So we got the shafts going through the loops. Then we have the traces, which are also going through the loops. This strap is strictly for holding on the trace. And then there's another, we know there's one coming off this ring here that holds the trace. He's also using it to hold on the shaft. So that's where I'm saying it depends. Notice this setup here. There's a ring in front here. There's no martingale of any kind, but there's this ring, and for some reason that's like, I guess that's to hold it up higher on the horse. So why does this exist? Hold it in place. Remember, it depends. Depends on the animal, but depends on the setup. So keep that in mind. If you have a horse like this and you can't keep this to stay in place in the front, then they add a strap. I don't know, it's just pretty. And that's just pretty. I can just look at horses and their harnesses all day long. How pretty is that? Here's another setup, a Meadowbrook cart, but this time Meadowbrook cart horse has a collar. This is a larger horse, probably a draft. Would make sense then that the draft would have a collar. It's not a show harness. There's no peak on it. It's just a regular old harness. There's the strap. The trace is not being held. I guess it's high enough up, but that's definitely using that to hold the shaft instead of the trace. It depends. There's no rules where what she's doing. This is just pleasure driving. So if that's what she needs to do to feel safe in her setup, then that's what she needs to do. And this here is for backing up. So she doesn't have anything to hold this trace up. Instead, she has a shaft wrap so that the horse can back up or brake. A couple of pretty horses. So your check ring, I don't know what that's attached to. Looks like it's attached to the curb chain. So the curb chain is attached to the bridle there, and then the over check rein is attached to the curb. That's interesting. Because it depends. Notice with this noseband here, it's in the back. There's a buckle. But there's still only one strap here. It does all the connecting. And if we zoom in, notice how there's a feeder, something fed through that noseband that holds this in place. So instead of it being a loop, and we know it goes straight through, but there's a band on the outside that holds it. Stuff like this I find very interesting. There's your connection. Okay. He's just pretty. There's really nothing to say about him. He's just gorgeous. But notice how ribbons become part of the decorations. Ribbons and bows. And these long straps do absolutely nothing except make him look pretty. Isn't that gorgeous? I really wish there were these 3 people in the back because those are not a part of the harness. Here we are, not attached to anything, getting out to go to work. I would assume, based on this here, that he's going to be attached as a team. Standard snaffle. More pretty horses. These guys are show because they have the peak. Peak that's added on to the hames or the collar and is held on by the hames, so the very pressure of the hames holds it in place. There are different ones of these. There are different styles of these peaks, so I'm only showing you one style. I find it interesting that they have this check rein on there. So this is your this is what they decided for check rein for their draft, is to go ahead and use the light horse harness check rein. See, I don't know what that attaches to. It should attach to the bit. It just doesn't look right there, does it? There has to be another bit going through or an attachment on the bit. But there's another example of it depends. So these guys have that style over check rein. There's a bit going through their mouth. There has to be for that. This is a poorly fitting collar, so they put padding to make it fit better, make it more comfortable for the horse. See your shaft wrap. There's your shaft loop. That's your girth. That's the other strap that holds your shaft loop down. Okay. I thought this was cool. You have a face drop that's got a loop in it that then attaches to the bridle. And then I think this is your over check rein right here that attaches to a loop. The thing I thought was most interesting is they used a carabiner to hold these two pieces together. Puns. Not much to say here except they're really pretty horses. It's another look at the whipple tree that's attached to the hook that's on the shaft. See how long this tail is, and you got all these straps and everything. Oh, yeah. You should tie that up. That's a nice setup. Really simple. No running martingale. But this is pleasure. It's for fun. So does it need a running martingale? Not if it's out pleasure where there's no, you set rules. So cool. Here's another Meadowbrook cart setup. Got breeching, very simple, very lightweight. Got a shadow roll. So can you put a shadow roll on a bridle? It depends. So they're just out for fun. These guys are pretty. So this is interesting. So here's your pole. So you have a shaft that doesn't pivot. Okay, it goes left to right, but it doesn't go up, down. The shaft here to the wagon. So they have a pole. The pole attaches center to the collar. See, that's what that ring is for. You have a strap or a hook or whatever goes to that ring that's right by the trace chaff, right? And then it hooks onto. Now you could do a really long strap and try and hook it onto, a loop here, but they don't have that. So what they have instead is this pole. And then they're hooked onto a hook on the pole. And then that pole is hooked onto the wagon. So again, with harnesses, how it's set up depends on the equipment you have, the event you have, all of that. Because this is standard. I don't think we'd see it in a U-set event, but it is correct for this event, and it is correct for this wagon. This is some Polish setup. So if you go regional, your harnesses are going to look different. See, look what the saddle looks like. So I believe this was Polish. And I know it's a drawing, it's not a photograph, but it's just to emphasize that different regions of the world are going to have different harnesses. Single horse. One horse. There's no backing up even though there's breeching because there's no pole. Will this work? For pulling, it'll work. For backing up or braking, not so much. I think this baby's just on her way to work. Close-ups of the brasses. And this is also the draft saddle. So in this case here, much larger. So I have the strap for the belly. And it's just one example of a saddle. But I really like the brasses. And these are just decorative, these two straps here. Not attached, that's just to make them look pretty. I think this one also. Because there's no strap at the bottom to hold up the trace. That was just a nice close-up picture, padding of the saddle. And this particular saddle is very large. It's kind of cool. But most saddles are not. Most of them are just small, like the ones I'm going to teach. So it depends. And you certainly can make your changes however you want. All right, so these straps, we usually see them attached to the girth. But here's an example of where it's attached to the saddle strap. That's what's right for the setup. So it depends. Here's a lovely close-up of a light harness. Of a heavy harness on a light horse. So it's the medium one. And look at your saddle. It's got a pad that's probably decorative as much as it is for padding. I think it's probably more for decoration or to keep the saddle clean. So this here could actually be a wrap around a pole, a shaft wrap, right? And they're putting the trace through it to keep it up. What do I already know here? This is probably a 2-horse hitch or a multi-horse hitch because there's no shaft. Oh, and I left this one here because this is just pretty. I think they're so pretty in their harness. Much bigger belly band. But there you go. That is pictures of harnesses, a discussion of what I see in the pictures, and a way that you can pick apart pictures to figure out how you're going to do your harness. Because it's so many options, and what you have and what you do, it depends. Depends upon your horse, your setup, the event, so you can do this yourself, hopefully now. Find a picture that you want to emulate, that you can use for your documentation, and then make the harness to suit that situation. And then you can make any corrections if you think you need to. All right. Thank you for spending time with me today. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel. Have yourself a really good day.